Good morning. How is everyone this morning? It is Friday, and I am Anna Walker, otherwise known as Felt It. Thank you for being here with me today. Usually you see me working with things like fiber and felt and yarn and all kinds of things fuzzy and furry and fluffy. But for the past several weeks and through the end of next week, I've been coming to you every day, Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. And we've done a little internet create date, a little art lesson with Anna. Today, we're going to make a button-down bracelet. Here are two examples that I've done. I wore this one yesterday during the project, and this is another one that I made. Two slightly different ways to go about it. This is using much larger buttons and double strands. Because they're larger buttons, we wanted to give it extra strength. And this one using single strand, but going through two buttons so that you got an extra little design element. So without further ado, let me turn the camera down and we'll get started. Okay, so what we're going to need are some buttons. I have got a lot of special buttons that I've gotten when they've been on discount or on clearance at the fabric store. And the one I want to use for our focal point today is one of these heart buttons in orange. I just love the shape and I love the color. So that's going to be our main focal point. We'll get rid of these because we don't need the rest of them. Now, the other part that's a problem about this project, if you have jars and jars of buttons like I do, then the hard part is picking out the buttons you want to use. So take your time and sort through whatever buttons you have and pick out the ones that make you smile. And I've done that already, so I've got my buttons ready right here, and they can be dumped out. Let me set that right over there. We're also going to need some elastic cord. I'm going to need a pair of scissors, a piece of tape, just some masking tape to help hold the end down until you're able to tie it off at the very end is always a helpful thing to have on hand. And then, of course, we'll need some glue. Now, if you don't have glue, and if you do have maybe some nail polish, some clear nail polish would work. We're just using the glue or the nail polish on the knot when we tie our cords together after we've strung our buttons into our beaded bracelets. So that's really all there is to this project. So first thing to do, I like to cut a length of the elastic cording, and I used my purple here because I think maybe you can see the cording just a tiny bit better. Maybe not. I'm just going to do whatever I can to get as much shimmer on here as possible so you can see that. I'd rather have too much cording than not enough, okay? So what I'm going to do is go ahead and put a piece of tape on this end of the cord. I'm going to move that a little bit closer here. There we go. Now you can see it better on the camera, I think. So that is the end of my bracelet. This is the entire length of the cording that I'm going to use to design my bracelet. Now, we know that this is going to be the focal point, so I'm going to put this one on first, and I'm coming up from the bottom with the cord. I'm going through one hole and down the other hole. We're always going to work from the back to the front of the button, and then I'm just going to slide this on down to the end. So that is the end piece of my button bracelet. Now what I have to do is figure out how I want to set up the design of the buttons that I chose to go along with this project. First thing you want to do is find out which side is the up side. Some of them aren't so, different. With this one, you can tell that this is the upside because there's a slight curve to the top. It's a little bit beveled at the top, and it's flat, completely flat on the bottom. So once I've got them all laid out, is that one up? Nope, that one's up. Okay, so this is another good example. See how this button has got a ridge around one side, but it's completely flat on the other? Well, the flat side is the bottom side, and the ridge side is the top side. So I've got them all here. I want to space them out. And when I'm designing something like a bracelet with buttons or with beads, I want to make sure that I spread out not only the colors, but also kind of the textures and the shapes as well, because I want to share the different, design aspects of each of the pieces here as we're going on. Let's put that one there. We'll put that one there. And let's go that. What have we got? 3 in between. We've got 2 in between here. Let's do, no, I don't want that texture. There we go. It's too dark next to it. Maybe I'll do that. Yeah, I kind of like that. And I've got one more button. It's a peach button. So let's put that peach button right there. So we'll have the bright orange button be the focal point, and then we'll have a peach button on one side and we'll have a peach button on the other side, and all of these will be in the middle. So I've lined them up the way that I want to have them on the bracelet. I can either start at this end or this end. It really doesn't matter. If I had shapes, if these were all heart-shaped buttons and the hearts all had the points at this end, I'd want to start at this end so that I could keep all of the rounded ends of the hearts facing the same direction. But for our purposes, it really doesn't matter. So I'm just going to start at one end. And again, I'm coming through the bottom, going through one hole. Now some of these have 4 holes in them, and I can either choose to go across or I can choose to go next to. I'm choosing across because I don't have a second strand going in there. So I've just got it angled, and having those 4 dots, those 4 openings for where you would sew it on, going at an angle adds another little bit of texture and design to our bracelet. And remember, we're coming up on the bottom, going through one of the buttonholes, and coming up and going through the other buttonhole down to the underside again. And sometimes it can get a little fiddly. Remember when we did our paper bead bracelet? Oh, and this is a broken button. No, it's not. Let's try this again. Remember when we did our paper beaded, beaded bracelet with our paper beads that we made? I even lost track of where I was going with that thought. There we go. Now we've got it on. And don't worry if they flip over to the back as you're beading them on. That is likely going to happen, but it's something that we can make sure that we've got everything untwisted by the time we tie our knot in the end. Yeah, I completely forgot where I was going. Oh, I know where I was going. Remember when we did our paper bead bracelet, and I said that if you had trouble with the end of your plastic, your elastic cording being too wobbly, that you could strengthen it by putting a little dot of glue or a little dot of nail polish on it to help strengthen it, make it more needle-like. You can do that same thing here if you want. So if this gets to be too much of a trial trying to put that floppy needle through the hole, then you absolutely can strengthen the end of your elastic cord by putting just a drop of nail polish on there. And again, you see that we're, just flipping around, and all I'm doing is taking the time each button to make sure that I'm coming up and that I've got things straight. Once again, coming up from the bottom, through one of the buttonholes, over the top, through another buttonhole to the back, and then pulling it straight down and sliding it right next to the other buttons that are already in line. Now, if you're making this for a specific person, you'll want to know how long you need to make it, so you'll want to measure around their wrist. Now, if you're doing this as a surprise, that means it's going to be a little tricky, but what you could do is you could go up to that person that you're making the bracelet for, and you could grab their hands, and you could just come up to them and say, "Oh, I love you so much," and just hold your hand like that, figure out which finger it is, and then you can take and put those fingers together, and you can get a pretty close estimate of how big you need to make the bracelet. So tricky little way to still be a surprise. You could always just ask to see their favorite bracelet and try it on. Ask if you could maybe, wear it for a moment or two and see if it fit you really well. Get an idea of how it fit and whether or not you need to make a bigger bracelet or a smaller bracelet. I have a friend who has really, really tiny wrists, and I need to remember that whenever I make her a bracelet because my wrists are really, really wide. So it all just depends on how you're created and how you're made. And remember, each button we're just coming up from the back side, and we're going down through the next hole on the top. And then we'll slide them on down. Make sure that our buttons are facing the same direction when we get them down here. Isn't that making a pretty design? I really like the colors with the orange and the peach and the wood colors. I think it's going to make a really pretty bracelet. All right, so I have another one with 4 holes again. So I'm going to come up through 1 hole, and then I'm going to go across the diagonal to the hole that's on the diagonal to go down, and that is going to put this button on at an angle so that we see it's almost a diamond shape with those 4 holes there. And then again up from the bottom and down through the back. Truly, the toughest part of this project isn't getting a measurement, isn't stringing the buttons on. The toughest part of this project is choosing your buttons, because oh my gosh, there are so many buttons. And here's another one that's at an angle. I'm going to see if I can do this without seeing it. Yeah, that's not happening very well. Nope. All right, so go under, come in from under, go through a buttonhole, come across the top, go across the diagonal when you've got 4 of them, and then make sure all of our buttons are facing the same direction. Slide it on down. 3 more to go. Up from the bottom, through the top, over, and then in the other buttonhole. Slide it on down. Now, I would be more concerned about having my buttons all facing the same direction if I were making a design that had 2 strands, because then if you get it twisted, it can cause a problem with it laying flat. So with just using a single strand, it's not going to be as big a deal for us, okay? 2 more buttons, come up from the bottom, through one of the buttonholes. Okay, I thought I had it. Let's try again. There we go. Over the top and through the other buttonhole. There we go. Slide it on down. And our very last one. Come up from the bottom, through the buttonhole, over the top, through the buttonhole to the back. And there we have our bracelet put together. Now all we need to do is bring these together and tie them in a knot. The nice thing about the buttons being on the plastic cord is that they're not likely to slip off, but it does take a little bit of fiddling to find the back side of each of the buttons so that you can get to the end here and tie your knot. Now what I like to do is tie an overhand knot with both strands first. And so I'm just pulling it a little tighter, wrapping it around one of my fingers, flipping it under. Gotta make sure I get both strands under. Okay, maybe we won't do it that way. Let's just do it our surgeon knot way. Only we're gonna do the surgeon knot backwards a little bit. We're gonna go right over left and under and under. I wanna do this part first. Tie it tight, hold it, go left over right and under, and then pull it down all the way tight. And then what we want to do is take a look at the back side here where our knot is. Trying to get our knot right here on the wood. You see how our knot is right here on the wood? That is where I'm going to come in and put my dot of glue to hold that knot into place. Because the one thing that can happen with the elastic cord in particular is that it will come loose sometimes. And so I want to anchor it, and that's probably a little bit too much glue. So I'm going to, where's my toothpicks? There they are. It's always good to have some of your tools handy, because you never know when you might need them. And I pulled a little bit of that glue off so that we don't have to worry about it bunching up too much. But you see how I've just got a dot of glue right there on the knot itself? Now I want to just give it time to let it dry, okay? Because we want this to dry so that it is, that knot is stuck to the back of our focal bead. And as soon as it's dried, then we can trim off our edges. And when we're done with that, then we'll have our bracelet. Now, maybe you've decided you wanted to do a double design with the buttons that you have. Maybe all you have are small buttons. This is a really fun way to do a design with double buttons. You just get a larger one and a smaller one, and they can coordinate or not, however you decide you want to make that design. But this is a fun little way to do a button-down bracelet. The other one was the one that I wore yesterday. And this one, I used really big buttons because I had this pretty focal button right here, and I had lots of these larger buttons. Now, all of the buttons that I chose, except for the focal button, have 4 holes in them. And what I did, and I'm not sure you can see, but can you see that I've got 2 strands there, and I have them crossing right there in the middle of the button? Let's see if it shows up better on one of the darker ones. See how we've got double strands and there's sort of a cross stitch in the middle of that button. That gave it a little extra strength because I was using the larger buttons. But the same thing on the back. I just made sure that I had a nice blob of glue that held the knot to the back of my focal button to keep it straight. Now with this one, because we were using double strands, I had to be very careful about how I put the buttons on. And actually what I ended up doing was working from the back side so that I could see that my lines were all straight going from one side to the next side. You see how they line up and they're just going even? It looks like they're just going straight through, but they're not. They're crossing underneath. And so this strand is really this strand, and this strand is really that strand. But it looks like they're going nice and straight, and that's how I could make sure that I wasn't going to get any twists in my bracelet when it was all over and done with. And this one is fun. I like it because it is larger, and I made it to fit my wrist so that I could have a fun and funky bracelet. This one's a little smaller. I can get it on my wrist, but it's not comfortable. So this one's probably going to go to my friend who has that tiny wrist. Remember I told you that she's got a really tiny wrist as opposed to my big wrist? So you can make these any size you want. It's going to take, an hour or so for your bead to dry. And I'm noticing that my knot is coming a little loose here. So I want to take every once in a while until it's dry. You might have to pull it a little tight just to make sure that it doesn't go anywhere. But that is our project for today. Now, I want to tell you something exciting, well, at least for me, and I hope for you too, because I'm going to have a little show and tell on Monday. But do you see that pile of stuff right there, right back there? right there. I just got some new wool in. And so I'm going to be doing some felting this weekend, and I'll show you what I make on Monday when we come back. Next week's projects, the list is going to, excuse me, list is going to go out for supplies a little bit later today or first thing tomorrow. Next week is all about summer fun, and there are some projects that you can do to just have fun during the summer, and maybe they're things that you'll make next week that you can use all summer, or maybe they're things that you'll start next week and then you'll go back to them during the summer. In any event, if you go to stabthingsintoexistence.com, you'll find the address for my YouTube channel, and all of the projects that we've done for these past several weeks are there. So if you want to do a project again, you've got the videos right there that you can follow along with all summer long. And if we are still doing remote school in the fall, I'll be back in the fall. So until Monday, have a great weekend. Have fun making your bracelets. Be sure to tell Mom and Grandma and any other mom that you know Happy Mother's Day this weekend. And I'll talk to you soon. Have fun, friends. Bye-bye.